Hey there, welcome to today's video. This is Bharat Divyan from Gutlang Academy. Openings is a very integral part of chess. Many students spend countless hours preparing for opening. Then again, when you actually go into a tournament, you're going to meet opponents who play crazy opening. What does one do, especially when you're a beginner, an intermediate player? How do you deal with crazy opening? So here are 6 things that you can keep in mind when you deal with crazy opening. The first thing is chess is a game of rules, yes, but it's also a game of principles. So when you learn chess, one of the first things that you learn is the opening principle. Control the center, develop your pieces, and keep your king safe. And that's precisely what you need to be doing when your opponent plays crazy opening. So here's an example. You play e4, but your opponent plays h5. Don't worry too much about it. Continue with your plan. Knight f3 comes out, controls the center. He plays an equally crazy move, a5. Continue with your plan, control the center, develop your pieces. But then he plays h4. Now you need to make a small exception. Realize that he's going to be pushing the pawn further, and that's going to be quite a bit of a headache. So while you're developing, while you're following the principles, also remember that you've got to maintain your flexibility. Be very fluid, very flexible about it, and realize what your opponent's intention is. What is his motive? His motive is to push it to h3 at the cost of basically breaking your king side. So just one move can save you that. h3 and you're totally. So in other words, stick to the opening principles, but keep your eyes and ears open to watch out for any possible crazy moves and find a way to counter. Second, remember that most crazy openings are designed to affect you psychologically. It's not so much the chess, it's more about the mind. So you've got to learn how to stay calm and not overreact. So an example of overreacting is when you play e4, he plays h5, you play h4, he plays a5 and you play a4. This is overreaction. It's not necessary. Just because he's playing crazy opening doesn't mean that you have to fall into his web and then change your entire plan. This is something you don't want to do. This is just one example. There are many examples that you might see here again. Next, just because there are crazy opening doesn't mean that they're good moves. They could be absolutely bad moves like f6. You should know how to punish that. An example here is to capture, give a check, he blocks it. Give a check, he blocks it with the queen, and you get the rook. So you lost a knight, but you got 2 pawns and a rook in exchange. That's amazing. So you always need to know when there's unsound moves, principally unsound moves, you need to know how to kind of break it. Next is an example of maintaining flexibility. This is a game between, I think, Kasparov and Topalov. So Kasparov played white, which is kind of like the standard opening until b5. So b5 was not your normal opening. It was slightly different. Now, obviously, you're not going to have the crazy opening like what we saw with h5 and a5 amongst grandmasters, but this would be like the same level of crazy for a grandmaster level of play. So what Kasparov did was to not really get worried about it, but maintain his flexibility about it. He realized that Black wanted to kind of be aggressive on the queen side, but he just went ahead with his plans, not really bothering too much about it, going ahead with the exchange, removing the fianchetto to bishop, and then playing that one move a3 to ensure that the pawn doesn't get pushed further. He still castled queenside, even though he realized that there is going to be an amazing attack, and that attack just was nullified. So this is an example of being flexible, being calm, and continuing your game and not getting too worried about your opponent's crazy openings. Just sound chess moves and flexible options is the key. The next thing to remember, point number 5, is know your opponent's moves. The best game that explains this is between Kramnik and Kasparov. I think this was the 2000 world champion. So Kramnik knew Kasparov's motives, which was that he is aggressive, he wanted to play aggressive chess, And he found a variation which kind of nullified all of that. That's the Berlin. In fact, he made the Berlin famous after this particular game, where it's been used often after that. So this leads to an exchange. Even though black loses his castling rights, the queens get exchanged. It leaves a very, very dull and boring, game from here on. It kind of it goes against the grain with somebody like Kasparov, who would like to play more aggressive and attacking chess. So knowing your opponent's motives is very important in chess. You're not playing just the board, you're playing the person as well. Final thing to remember is, often in crazy openings there are tactical traps hidden, and you got to be aware of it. You can't be aware of every single opening trap, but paying attention to interesting moves, especially when you think about potential counteracting checks, right? Like counterplay in terms of checks like this, which forces your bishop to come back, and then suddenly you're losing pieces. Uh, this kind of leaves white in a more challenging space here rather than black. So, this is an example of being aware of possible tactical traps in the unusual openings that you're not prepared for. So, end of the day, you know, playing against crazy openings is like driving your bike on a dirt road. If you are a good rider and if you have a good bike, you should be able to kind of navigate any pitfalls. That's very similar here. If you are a mindful chess player who pays attention to every possible move, think of every possible calculation, you should be able to deal with most of them. You don't need to prepare for every single thing. You don't need the map of the entire road with every single pothole for you to actually drive on it. You can figure it out as you go along. Remember that lesson. That's very, very important in chess as well as in life. It's a life skill to build the skills to navigate unknown terrain. That's about what I had for today, which is defending against crazy openings. 6 things that you should remember: from being flexible, remembering your principles, staying calm, not overreacting, punishing things when they are unsound, and knowing your opponent's motives. Understand the psychology behind it, and always, always be mindful about possible tactical traps. If you like this video, please do share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next. Thank you so much.